Josh and Frankie. What a couple of dumb shits.
Hello, Primates! You found Primus Tracks. Congratulations! There are so many places to find Primus Tracks. In fact, there are so many, you might find it exhausting. We are here at the podcast. You can also find us at Primus Tracks on Instagram and a service called Threads. There is also a Facebook page titled Primus Tracks. You could follow that. You could like it. You could do both. You could do neither. There is also an email address called primustrackspod@gmail.com. I am Josh in a secure location miles below the earth, and he is in the 39th floor of Primus Tracks Towers in Mexico City, eating all the al pastor. It's Frankie Bearstein.
Eating all the cookies.
Oh, of course, all the galletas in all of the city, and actually the greater Mexico City area. I'm sure you have a monopoly over all of them.
Hello, Josh.
Hello, Frankie. I'm glad you have your cookies up there on the 39th floor to keep you company. Today we are talking about track 3 from Colonel Claypool's Bucket of Bernie Brains record, The Big Eyeball in the Sky. It is called Tyranny of the Hunt. We have some business to take care of first, Frankie. There are many ways to support Primus Tracks. The easiest way is to listen and tell your Primus friends. Hell, tell your friends who don't like Primus. Make them listen to a podcast about a band that they have no affiliation with. If they remain your friends after that, you can listen to the ads that run after the music closing of this here podcast. We get a few pennies for those. I don't know what the ads say. Don't really care. You can mute them. I don't care. Play them really loud. Bug your neighbors. You could also leave a 5-star review at places like Apple Podcast or Spotify, I think, does star ratings at this point. You could also send us a 5-star review via Instagram or any of those other contact methods that I mentioned earlier. And, of course, there is patreon.com/Primus Tracks. That's a great place to support Josh and Frankie with all kinds of extras every month over there. Go check that out. And if you have any questions, send them our way. I bring all that up, Frankie, because we do have a 5-star review to read from Apple Podcast. I have not checked it in many weeks. Lo and behold, and there was, from the time of our recording, about a month ago, a 5-star review just sitting there waiting to be plucked. This is from Apple Podcast, a 5-star review by BlazerJohn13, who titles it Late to the Party. And BlazerJohn13 says, great podcast and great information about the band and world of Primus. Question for Frankie. How do you display all of your signed vinyl? Hopefully I made it into the punch bowl. Keep up the good work. BlazerJohn13, you absolutely did make it into the punch bowl. You are a lifetime member. Drink up. Frankie, how do you display all your signed vinyl?
At the moment, everything is in a shelf, like in chronological order. You just look at the spines. I could do something cool with the signed ones, but I haven't figured that out yet. And I still need to see how I'll make space for all the vinyl I'm getting on New Year's Eve once Josh hands it over.
For those of you unfamiliar with the saga of the chair, there is a chair not even 2 feet away from me, to my right, that is storing for Frankie many a vinyl record and a handful of CDs and a couple of posters that have made their way to my house so Frankie can save on shipping costs. Completely reasonable. However, this chair is beyond capacity. How it is still standing is beyond me, and I'm more than looking forward to handing all of these things off to you, including the chair on New Year's Eve. I think there's a fair amount of signed vinyl on that chair as well. Maybe I'll display it first and give you some design ideas. Thank you for the question. Sneak it in there, BlazerJohn13. That sound could mean only one thing, everybody. We do have some miscellaneous debris today. And it comes in the form of speculation. just today, as of this recording on October 6th, 2024, our good pal, well, he might be our pal in the future, Frankie, you never know, Puddles of Puddles Pity Party posted some tour dates for 2025, and he just so happens to be playing some venues around the Bay Area in early January 2025, which tells me, Frankie, I think we might see him at the Primus New Year's Eve shows.
We might be getting a Holy Diver or an Immigrant Song or something completely unexpected.
So my wild prediction, and I'm going to revise it. I made this wild prediction a few, like right after the announcement with the show's themes. I thought, okay, it's seafaring and so on. They're going to play Iron Maidens with Mark Asagueda from Death Angel on vocals. But now I'm thinking, Frankie, they'll do Rime of the Ancient Mariner, but Puddles will step in on vocals on that one. So that's my wild prediction for New Year's Eve. If it becomes a reality, you can thank me at the show. And buy Frankie a nice cold Coca-Cola.
That would be cool.
Yeah, you would get a sugary drink for doing nothing. That is pretty cool. That's it for miscellaneous debris right now, but I am always open to news and rumors around what may transpire at New Year's Eve 2024-25 in the Bay Area with Primus. Let's talk about Tyranny of the Hunt, track 3 from the Big Eyeball in the Sky. This one checks in at 4 minutes and 55 seconds, and it is our 4 co-conspirators, Les Claypool, Buckethead, Bernie Worrell, and Brain. Tell us about this mighty tune.
Tyranny of the Hunt was performed a grand total of 16 times throughout the 2004 tour to support the Bucket of Bernie Brains album. On a few, and I mean a few occasions, it was performed relatively close to the album version with just a little improvisation prior to the final verse, but most of the times out of these 16, it became a jam vehicle. And sometimes it became a showcase for Bernie. Sometimes it became a showcase for Les with a bass solo. Sometimes Buckethead went a little wild. There was always something unpredictable going on with Tyranny of the Hunt on stage. And you'll get a little taste of that today with the live tracks that we brought.
Last week when we discussed Thai Noodles, it appeared again in some live lineups of the Fancy and Fungi bands, as I recall, as well as the Return to the Frog Brigade. Did Tyranny of the Hunt ever even earn a tease after the Bernie Brains?
Never, ever got performed again, not even as a tease. It was completely forgotten.
As I rediscover this record, Frankie, have not heard it for some time. This one jumped out at me as a nice structure to it, and it's got a nice earworm quality to it. So this one was a stronger tune to me. Obviously, Buckethead and Thai Noodles are catchy in their own rights and have massive strengths, but this one seemed like a really relatively almost garnering college radio type play quality to it. So, and I know they didn't lead with this one. The promo track, or the samples at least, that were on the band's website in the run-up to the record was Junior. If it wasn't the whole track, it was a portion of it. But this one feels like it may have gotten some traction. What do I know? I don't remember what the scene was like in 2004, but this one's a strong tune. And as we make our way through our record here, I think it might stay in my top 3 for the entire record. We'll see.
As Les recalled in our conversation with him, I had also read an interview where he mentioned that this phrase, the Tyranny of the Hunt, he read it somewhere and it stuck with him, and it became something fascinating for him, the concept of the lengths to which someone will go to in order to impress a female.
Because he did offer that quote at the time, we're led by our penises. And so these are lyrics, I suppose, about male sexual desire and the lengths that guys will go to satisfy that desire. And there, of course, are some haunting lyrics. Frankie will probably cover his ears when we get to the last verse. But Yeah, there's this one is actually more of a lyric tune to me. I love the music to this one. I do think it's a very strong track, but the lyrics, more than the first two tracks on the record, the lyrics are catching my attention. Wanted to play a few parts of this one because this is not just a standard A or AB tune. There's more than a few parts to it. Although the first couple of minutes stick to the A part or the main theme, they certainly go in different directions afterwards. I'm going to play the intro, and I'm contrasting it with what we heard on Thai Noodles, Frankie, which was much less structured and a lot looser, but certainly had an interesting aspect to it because we're trying to find the one. We're trying to find how these instruments are working together because they seem so disparate at the beginning. But here with Tyranny of the Hunt, we get a really cool Buckethead lick, and everybody is in lockstep with it right away, and certainly catches my attention. Just that simple catch, right? And we're off. Really cool lick by Buckethead there, and then Les is playing a really nice foundational bass line underneath it, and things are moving. Did this one catch your imagination or your attention on first listen, Frankie?
Right away, because of the way the music kicks in after the opening riff. It just seemed so compelling. Still does to this day.
Absolutely. It's just they all when they all kick into gear there after those first few repetitions, it's got my attention. But then that stop start quality comes back during the verses, and it's a very interesting structure because during the verses we get three iterations of that riff with stops after them with some lyrical delivery in the void there, and then after that fourth iteration of it, we're moving again, I should say, and we're into the musical chorus with the repetition of Tyranny of the Hunt.
And since the first listen, I immediately felt that Junior kind of replicated the same thing this track is doing with the opening riff and the band coming in at full force. I mean, they even sound similar, both opening riffs to me at least.
Yes, they do have similar qualities to them. The Junior one is a bit more strangled. That's the word that comes to mind. It's a bit more contained. This Buckethead lick here on Tyranny is a bit more legato, and really, I just love the way he delivers it. It sounds great. It's very smooth, and then it has a really nice step-up ending that that allows him to recreate the loop, and then the rest of the band can come in. I'm going to forward. So the first couple of minutes, we get a lot of that, and a lot of stop-start, which is, Claypoolian to the max, and a really cool chorus. We get really nice instrumentation, a great story in the lyrics, and then we get a pretty cool transition a little after the 2-minute mark. So we get that for a few repetitions, and then it's gone, and we're on to another section. And that might be, if I was going to cut this record, Frankie, into their sections or their riff parts or whatever you want to call it, that might be one of my absolute favorites. That is a really cool bass line. It's a play on what Les would normally do, but it's really catchy and innovative with the way he's ascending on that. Bucket's making some cool noises. I love it. I love that part. They just give it to us, and then it's gone again, and it transitions into this really funky part here.
Yeah, it is very hard-hitting, but it is funky at the same time.
Then they go into funk overdrive with Bernie playing the kind of the funk guitar part on the keyboards here. Brain with a great groove. So Les is essentially playing quarter notes there with a few eighth notes thrown in. Bernie's doing the funk guitar on the keyboard. Brain's groove is really cool, and Bucket gets to deliver a nice guitar solo here. And then they kind of pick it up a bit, and then we're back into the A part again. After a little bit of funk right here, which brings back that riff. All right, and then from there, we're careening towards the end with the repetitions of Tyranny of the Hunt and the many different vocal iterations that Les does there, of course, in private, late at night, when nobody else is around. Fantastic stuff. It's a nice structure to have your A, and then a really brief B, and then a C that cools it down a little bit and gets you a guitar solo, and then you're back into your A, and you're chugging right along again towards a pretty cool ending. I'm a big fan of it. This and that repetition at the end, sometimes, Frankie, sometimes these drag on for me. This one does not for me because it's so delightful to listen to. Curious about your thoughts there.
It does not drag up for me either. Actually, even when I played the live versions, which became jam vehicles, there are some portions where you go, oh my God, I was really getting into that. And then they're playing something completely different. So yeah, I agree with you. It's an incredibly enjoyable track.
And that's a challenge to do with one that's about 5 minutes long. Some tunes in general overstay their welcome. Some aren't around long enough, but some are just right. But I would say generally most tunes wear out their welcome if they're 5 minutes long. But this one certainly stands up to that challenge and remains interesting throughout. And I think it's because they're moving. You know, it's not a breakneck pace, but it's a very purposeful pace at which they are delivering this tune, or tempo, whatever you want to say there.
And whenever I listen to this song, there is a specific part which remains an earworm for me the rest of the day. Can you guess which part?
My hope is that it's the part.
Precisely.
Yes!
Precisely. The part where Les goes, Herf, yeah, that's an earworm for me.
Let's play that part at the outro. Why not? That's a lot of fun. And it comprises most of the last minute. And it's just fun to hear him modulate his voice from and do all that stuff. And I'm sure he's doing that because nobody else is around, so he can just let it fly. So let's hear Frankie's Earworm of the Week, brought to you by That's it. We need a sponsor right here, Frankie. Frankie's Earworm of the Week. Who can we get to sponsor that? What's your favorite cookie brand? Let's get them on board. Frankie's Earworm of the Week. Forgot about that nice fill there, too, from Brain. Love that double kick. So we're getting a couple of things there. We're getting the and also the very high falsetto Tyranny of the Hunt. I don't even know if I could approximate that. So I don't know if he sweetened that a bit or if he was just going completely falsetto there, but good for Les, getting that high. And Frankie, did you notice? Brains on the ride cymbal there.
Your favorite.
Thumbs up from me. A lot of great cymbal catches throughout as well. I really love the foundation that Brain brings to this one, especially during that funk slowdown during Buckethead's solo. And this is something I should point out too, Frankie. During that Buckethead solo, you're not getting what you would assume is default or textbook Buckethead. You're getting him playing something he doesn't normally play, or that you would expect him to play at any rate. He's playing a pretty funky, offbeat thing as opposed to just going wild with the tapping and the shapes. So it's quite palatable, I think, for, and it's funny I'm saying it's quite palatable. It's quite palatable for me, somebody who's listened to a fair amount of Buckethead, and I'm listening to this going, wow, this is these guys playing some really catchy stuff. But at the same time, Frankie, if we showed this to the normies, there's probably plenty here that would make them think it's weird. You know, and I've said this for a lot of years now. Primus and Les Claypool music is entry level weird, and it's great. It gets you in the door to weird music, and then you can explore to your heart's content, find your limits, push them if you like, but enjoy what you found. That has really been the case for me. So this one is, once again, this one is just quite delightful, and this is one I remember going back to a lot after record release. Listening to this one in my apartment and really enjoying it, trying to rocking it out on the stereo. The lead track, Buckethead, and this one, Tyranny, definitely got a lot of replay from me, as I recall, in 2004. And that was a rough time for me, Frankie, because in that apartment, I didn't actually have an internet connection. So I was playing this CD and all of my digital music and other CDs when I was at home, which wasn't very often, considering I didn't have a reliable internet connection to do homework and upload schoolwork and all that schlamola. So I was at the computer lab a lot doing my homework. That's rough. It was a different time. Want to talk lyrics?
We might as well.
Let's start with the last verse, Frankie's favorite. No. So we know there's a theme. The theme has been stated, and as you so eloquently put it, Frankie, it's the lengths to which men will go for sexual satisfaction, I suppose, or sexual conquest, depending on some of these lyrics, at any rate. But Les calls it the tyranny of the hunt. What I really like in the first verse is he says, "It'll take you by surprise. It'll cloud the most unobstructed eye. The unpliable will ply." He very artfully presents this concept, and that even if you are clear-eyed and focused, or so steadfast in your values and stance, the tyranny of the hunt can get you, no matter what. Then we have this first-person part, Frankie. "I tore a chunk from my finger, red droplets to the floor. Suddenly it hits me. I won't be violining anymore." I'm not sure how that fits. Tell me about that.
I love that line, and I had a blast back when I was doing my illustration project. I had a blast drawing this particular song because that's the line I picked to represent the track, and it was really great fun. It's a really great piece of imagery.
Now, is there an adults-only version of the Tyranny of the Hunt illustration that features the gangrenous penis, or is that doesn't exist?
No, not at the moment.
That's an interesting one. I suppose it's the consequences of our actions is the idea there, and the metaphor of tearing a chunk out of the finger doesn't allow me to violin anymore. And then later on, we get the imagery of the guy shooting cocaine right into his member, and it eventually becomes gangrenous, right? So he does something disastrous to himself, and he's no longer able to do what he really likes to do. And I think that's the purpose behind the tore a chunk from my finger part.
I also find it really peculiar that Les uses violin as a verb. I had never heard that before or ever since.
Oh, well, it's most commonly used as a password for enhanced CDs. But yes, you can also hear it as a verb, violining, absolutely. It's a good one, violining anymore. It's fun to say. It kind of rolls right off the tongue, actually. Into the next verse, the tyranny of the hunt broke his morals down. So once again, no matter how steadfast you are, your sexual urges can overcome, your societal norms, I suppose. Left him standing in the bathroom with his trousers on the ground. That doesn't need much explanation, I imagine. This is very fun when we're thinking about sexual activity and that sort of thing. You may be drawn by sight. You may be drawn by smell. to do this thing, you might be led to Xanadu or sent off straight to hell. You're being drawn in by something, and it may lead you to paradise, which I suppose is what Xanadu is supposed to refer to. Also, I guess it's a sneaky Rush reference, if you want to put that to it, Frankie. or sent off straight to hell. Something awful will happen to you as a result of acting on your sexual desires in an immoral way. By the way, so far we have an ABCB rhyme scheme, which is not unusual. And then we get to the coup de grace, as Frankie, you called it, the most chilling lyric in the Claypool oeuvre.
Yes.
What about this lyric gets you? Is it just the imagery? Is it kind of like fingernails on a chalkboard? It makes you shudder when you read it or hear the lyrics?
It's just that anything related, I mean, whether it's literature, music, film, any medium where genitalia is damaged in any shape or form, I don't know why, it just makes me shiver.
Well, it's their genitals are precious, and for a lot of reasons, they're also quite vulnerable to harm. I was wondering if it was general body horror that got to you, or specifically of reproductive organs.
No, I mean, I love body horror films. I mean, The Fly is my favorite film of all
Oh,
time.
of course.
But I mean, if it's like a body horror film where things are just falling off from the body in a painless fashion, that's great. But if it involves I don't know, some kind of sharp object or torture or whatever, yeah, it's quite it sends shivers down the spine for me.
Gotcha. Okay, so when on the Videoplasty release by Primus, when you watched the animation short, The Pitfalls of Eating Your Own Genitalia, how'd that strike you?
Oh, that's okay because it's very cartoonish.
Okay, but the more realistic the genitalia being mutilated, the worse it is for you.
Yes.
I gotta say, not my favorite genre either. I don't watch a lot of horror movies in general, but the body horror ones hit and miss for me. I kind of like it because I can. What I will do is I will suspend my suspension of disbelief and just say to myself, this is really good practical effects work. They're doing fantastic work with these rubber penises or whatever, and or rubber stomachs and the fake blood. Wow, what a show! Love it. But generally, I don't seek it out.
So what is the reason that you don't normally watch horror films?
I think it's one of those things where it inculcates in youth, and so a lot of my friends in my younger years watched horror films and enjoyed them, and they were also allowed to watch horror films. I think I tried this. This is how old I am, Frankie. I remember going to the video rental store to rent videotapes, and I think I did try to rent some kind of horror film, and my dad said no. And because most of them were rated R, and I was 11 or 12 or something, and that wasn't going to happen in my household. So it's not something I necessarily grew up with. I was very curious about them and watched some in late in high school and into college for sure. I watched some really fucked up stuff in college. And then
Have you watched The Exorcist?
oh, of course. Yeah, that I consider like a classic, right? That doesn't even disturb me that much. Even thinking about it now, I think, oh, I'd watch The Exorcist. That'd be fun. So yeah, a lot of those that you would consider classics, I definitely watched and enjoyed as films. But the ones that are so over the top, never really got into those. A good recent example would be the Terrifier films. What I will do with films like Terrifier, which by all reports they are extremely graphic and bloody, and the kills are off the charts gross. What I will do is I will read the synopsis of the film on Wikipedia, just so I'm not missing out. In some of those articles, they will describe the kills in these films. And I go, oh, that's a novel way of using human intestines. What a good idea. I'd have no problem reading about it. I just don't really have the time or desire to watch it.
What you just said reminded me of the Mondo films. Have you ever heard of those? Mondo films became very prevalent and very popular in the 1980s. They were these VHS tapes where they kind of promoted culture, but that was a very thin veil just to it was kind of an excuse to showcase all kinds of graphic content disguised as documentaries. So these tapes would advertise on their back covers that they were documentaries about, African tribes, African culture, these very, very remote parts of the world. But really, the cultural content was minimal. They were just
Oh,
concerned with showcasing all kinds of graphic things, such as genital mutilation, for instance, or very violent rites. And there's a particular Mondo film that is infamous. It's called World Without Veils. It's from the early 80s. And this one was particularly shocking for its viewers because near the end, there is a sequence of a real life impaling.
oh my.
Yes.
Not a, I don't think I'd be watching that. That does not strike my fancy at all.
I think that's
Yikes.
way more out there than any horror film.
Yeah, and I remember like something like Cannibal Holocaust, which I never watched, but I read about it, and they were actually killing animals on camera, which is disgusting. Come on, man, that's too far, way too far, completely inappropriate. But some of those exploitation slash gore type films from that era, certainly I haven't seen. By the same token, I really loved trauma films, and they had some really cool body horror sequences, but it was it was presented in such a way that it seems safe, if that makes sense. And they were so low budget. It was more along the lines of to watch those and think, these guys are really accomplishing something on a shoestring budget. Good for them. And these movies are goofy as hell. That kind of presentation I could get behind, but the more exploitative and just gore for the sake of gore is not my style. Never really has been. With that in mind, the last verse goes like this, Frankie. I don't know how we got that far. A Petaluma man showed his gala trick. He took a needle full of cocaine and he shot it in his prick. And I will say right now, Frankie, for years, I thought it was showed his gallant trick. And if you were doing something gallant, you were doing something honorable. So I thought Les was just being sarcastic by saying showed his gallant trick, but it showed his gala trick. And of course, this comes straight from Soya's gangrenous penis story that made it into the lyrics.
What an honor.
What an honor indeed. So Soya's getting a lot of hat tips throughout the years lyrically, whether it's studio tracks or live cuts. They say he got the gangrene, the pain it wouldn't stop, and when he took a hot bath that night, his pecker floated to the top. Once again, no explanation needed. Not veiled at all. You can see the lengths to which this guy is going for satisfaction and the consequences thereof. That, I believe, beautifully encapsulates the tyranny of the hunt. And I like the phrase tyranny of the hunt too, Frankie, because tyranny comes from the word tyrant, which is an absolute ruler and somebody that controls every aspect of your life, or attempts to at any rate. And so if you think of the hunt as the effort for sexual conquest or some kind of satisfaction, the tyranny of it overtakes you and you are powerless because you are colloquially thinking with your dick or something like that.
Yes.
So I see where Les is coming with this one. And so the theme is there. All the lyrics hold with what he has to say within that theme. There's a great story behind it that was shared with us. And he talked about it in interviews 20 years ago too. So this one, a really well-rounded track lyrically as well as musically. And I apologize for anybody who doesn't like body horror. I should have put a disclaimer to fast forward about 5 minutes. That sound could only mean one thing. It's time for Primate's Takes. If you would like your opinion about the track up for discussion read right here on the podcast, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/Primus Tracks. There are many levels of support and so on for Josh and Frankie. However, the universal constant is I post a thread ahead of the episode, and you drop your thoughts there. I'll read it right here. It starts as such, Frankie. Anthony Del Preet, go Bills, says, is this one of the most sonically outer space sounding things that Les has ever recorded? Big fan. Interesting idea about the outer space, maybe with the vocals. Our pal Brooks Delight breaks it down as such, Frankie. He says, I do believe he said he loves the floating pecker. So he's mixing up some Thai noodles with his Tyranny the Hunt there. Nicely done, Brooks, for breaking it down. And the author and performer behind that Primates Takes theme song that you just heard, Johnny Perona, says, I'm with Frankie on that lyric. It's the most disturbing lyrical picture Les has ever conjured. I also find it hilarious that Soya just found out about it 20 years after the record's release. Holy shit, this record is 20 years old. Thanks, Johnny. And Mickey Waters says, classic character-driven and stop-start musical structure from Les and his many incredible musical collaborators. Mickey, you hit all the notes there. Uh-oh, Mickey's going to start breaking it down too. So it's going to be Brooks Breaks It Down featuring Mickey Waters. We are screwed. Frankie, we are out of jobs. Thank you, Primatrons, for your takes on this here tune. And now, it's Frankie's favorite portion of the episode. Live cuts.
A jam vehicle.
Live cuts. The jam vehicle. Live cuts.
A jam vehicle.
Live cuts. A true jam vehicle. Live cuts.
A jam vehicle.
Live cuts. The jam vehicle. Live cuts.
What's going on here? Shards of bone in my anus.
Speaking of body horror, Tyranny the Hunt. We're going to get 4 tracks today. Our first is from November 5, 2004. This one is from Frankie's fictional box set, and therefore does not have any metadata on it, but at least you have the date. November 5, 2004. You can find this Tyranny the Hunt. Let's hear the intro first.
It's Mr. Head, you see. Mr. Head.
Mr. Head! I know Mr. Head.
He's a gentle fellow. I understand.
Where's Bernie? There he is. Oh, that mix is interesting because I don't know if Bernie was playing the whole time, but I heard him faintly near the end of that clip.
Yeah, he was there, but yes, way in the background in the mix.
That was very drum heavy too. That was fun. Les was barely audible too. Is this a soundboard?
It is.
Wow, interesting mix there. I do say. Let's hear some bass about 3 minutes into this. This one, by the way, just over 7 minutes, so they definitely jammed this one out a bit. Telling them to bring it down. Yes. I think when Les is up in that register and kind of playing that in that funk vein, I suppose that's what I'm calling it for lack of a better term. I think sometimes that's when he's at his best. That sounded great.
And the bass solo was superb, I must say.
Absolutely. You know what? The sound on it, the tone on it reminded me of that Rhinoplasty live recording of Tommy.
Good point.
It certainly had that similar tone to it. And then he gives a really cool bass solo in that one too. After the Awakening, of course, he does a few licks, but in that realm of the Reddings or Larry Graham or some of his other funk influences. Man, let's move to The Catalyst in Santa Cruz. Also 2004. No date on it, but you can find it. Frankie says there's a breakdown about 2 minutes into this one. Like the tour bus? Because that's happened a lot recently. I like that transition. You know what I like about this too is its Brain is so forceful on the drums sometimes, and he's doing it in the background here, pushing it along. And that was a cool breakdown too, leading into that solo. Bucket sounds great. We should hear some more Bucket. Envelope filter sounds fine there.
Is it tasteful for you?
It's tasteful. It's nicely done there. It's not too wet. It's a moist envelope filter, and that's enough for me. Let's go to Washington. That's DC.
This
Go
is
ahead.
an interesting one because Les had some kind of issue, I guess, with his earpiece, and his vocals are coming out of sync with the music.
Oh,
And
interesting.
it takes them a while to fix it.
Let's hear Bernie Brain's Follies at Washington, D.C. Whoa. Yeah, I know it's off, but it actually sounds kind of cool this way.
There you go. That's the messed up one.
It's interesting that it continues that way, though. So do they stop the performance?
No, they go on, but it takes a while for them to fix it.
So something strange is going on the soundboard here. Huh. Yeah, that's weird. It's a little trippy. Hopefully they didn't have as many technical problems at our last destination, Frankie, which is Denver, Colorado, at the Fillmore, of course, 2004. Also appears to be a soundboard recording. Ooh. I like that too. Man, he's He's firing off some funky stuff there. Nice. And let's go to near the end of the track where Frankie has identified the ride and the kick drum. Yes! Let's go, Brain! Yeah, boy! Sorry. It was the ride symbol, Frankie. I couldn't control myself. It was the tyranny of the ride symbol.
Exactly.
Oh, man. And Brain on double kick. You don't hear that very often whatsoever. I think we heard some of it on the live cuts of the Buckethead track. But, man, Brain with a double kick. Interesting stuff. Why not? I mean, this was a project that was all about trying anything and everything, and so Brain, not normally associated with the double kick, he's giving it a go, and he sounds good. Thanks for those, Frankie. Those were
You're
fun.
welcome.
And it just confirms to me that this is a really strong track on the record, and it translates well live and gives everybody something to mess around with and have fun with. So I guess I can say this. Gangrenous penis, you've been tracked. Next time, Frankie, is that a ghost?
That one is gonna be epic.
It's the biggest ghost I've ever seen. Primates, primatrons, people of Earth, thank you all so much for listening. Thank you for your support. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. Hope you enjoyed Tyranny of the Hunt. We'll see you next time for Elephant Ghost. Later days.
Willie Mays.